Doing anything is better than doing nothing. Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now, I've always been a firm believer that if you've got a car that you enjoy driving, you should enjoy driving it all year round. You shouldn't put it into storage. That's partly because cars don't like being left stood for any length of time, but also because the UK's best roads are most enjoyable in the winter when they're free of caravans and other leisure traffic. But if you want to enjoy winter driving to the fullest, you need to protect the components on the underside of your car. And that's because they can take a battering from mud and particularly salt. Now, initially, this kind of corrosion will only cause aesthetic problems. It just looks a bit unsightly, but in time it will cause bolts to seize up. And in the case of the Cayman GT4, it will cause its adjustable suspension to no longer be adjustable because it will all have seized up. The good news is there are a number of anti-corrosion products on the market, and they're mainly very easy to apply on your driveway. Now, in part 2, I'm going to show you how I protected my Mark 7 Golf GTI Club Sport S. But today we're going to use Bilthamber Dynax UC and ACF 50 to winterproof my Cayman GT4. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get the car up in the air and get the wheels off. Now, the GT4 sits quite low, but I've got a low profile jack which goes underneath the car, unless you fit one of these to the jacking point. So this is a big lump of rubber that's designed to sort of lock into the jacking point on a lot of Porsches, actually. I think probably from 996 onwards, and that means you don't put the jack in contact with the metalwork, and that protects the underbody sealant. But if you slot this in, then suddenly it's too low for my jack to go underneath. So to get over that, I've dug out my Laser Tools mini ramps, and now we've got loads and loads of room. Now, it's just a normal 5-bolt fixing on these and none of those crazy center locks on a GT4. Just to make sure I don't damage the wheels, I bought a 19mm socket because Porsches run 19s with a nylon bit around the outside of it, which should mean that I don't damage the beautiful satin black wheels. Right, let's get cracking with the jacking. Okay, so the wheels are off. That was actually easier than I thought. So let's just have a look at the dirt in here now and what it's looking like. It's done a few thousand miles since I bought it. So there's bits of gravel and other rubbish on that under tray, but it still looks pretty good in there, so it's not too late. And I think I might have already sprayed something on these, or somebody has. So as you can see, coilovers with an adjustable spring platform. Yeah, actually these are famous for corroding, so it wouldn't surprise me if Porsche actually do something to them before they go on, but it's not enough. So we're going to use ACF 50, which is quite watery on here. You probably need to apply it every winter. And then we're going to use Bilthamber Dynax cavity wax wherever we can down there. You can see all that aluminium is still mint, and even the gearbox in there still looks really, really good. So obviously we have to be aware of heat, like you wouldn't want to spray it on the axle, the over axle pipes, OAPs, but yeah, there's so many other places we can get to before the weather does. Compared to the 981 Boxster I had, we've got this under tray that actually protects a lot of the car from the winter, because this brace bar here, you can see, is totally exposed on most of the 981s and 718s, and that does get corroded quite a lot. So that's a good thing. It's actually more like an R8 down here now, where, yeah, can't see anything, but still worth doing for definite. Let's have a look at the front. Okay, so we've got a bit of corrosion on the hub. It's disappointing, isn't it, really? But I guess the car's been sat for a long time, quite a lot of brake dust, lots of pad left, but in there it's still really clean. So yeah, we just need to make sure we don't go too aggressive on this stone chip protector because it can get damaged. Okay, I've got the pressure washer hooked up now, and I'm going to use it in the wheel arches to just give everything a good clean, because when we apply the wax, we don't want there to have been dirt on there first. So yeah, I'm not really bothered about the dirt in the wheel arches because that doesn't really do the car any harm. It's really the metalwork within that I'm trying to protect, so we just need to give that a good clean. Well, it's as simple as that. I haven't used any cleaning solution or traffic film remover because I don't really want to risk marking the aluminium components, of which there are many down there. Ideally, you'd really want to put it on full lock on the right, just so you can get the washer nozzle behind the front hub. But actually, if you move the nozzle around, you should do a pretty good job. Anyway, I just feel a bit nervous about moving a car on lock when it's jacked up, and also I don't really want to touch the Alcantara steering wheel with dirty hands, so I'm quite happy with that. Now we're going to put the wheels on now and then drive the car to just dry it off properly, ready for the application of the protectants tomorrow. Obviously, you really don't want to put a wheel onto a wet hub because it will just make it corrode, particularly the wheel bolts. If they go into the hub and there's water there, they can seize it in place. So just dry it off as best as you can and spray a water displacer like WD-40 or similar. Right now, I'll put the wheels on this side and do exactly the same on the other side. Okay, so now the car is dry where it matters. Unfortunately, there's a lot of muck on the road this time of year, so I've picked a lot of muck up on the wheel arch liner, but that doesn't rust anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that. Now, as well as my two anti-corrosion products, I've got some sort of multi-lube which I'm going to use to just give everything a wipe down, just a little bit on this cloth to get rid of any dirt that I haven't been able to get off with the pressure washer. And then we can move on to the waxes. So this is the main one. This is Bilthamber Dynax UC. It's $16.95 for this 750ml can, and this goes a long way. You can do one car easily with this, and this I'll use on the heavy components like the hub and the wishbones and the subframe. And it's just a nice thick cavity wax. Obviously, how you apply it depends how thick it is. If you apply it with the straw that comes with it, you'll get it thicker. If you just want a light coating that's pretty much transparent, which is what we want, then you just apply it with the nozzle like that. Then we have ACF50. So I used this originally on my Mark 7 Golf GTI Club Sport S when I was picking it up brand new in 2016, and here we are 7 years later. It's a lot lighter than this. You have to reapply this every year. I'd say this is pretty much permanent once you apply it, but it's designed for sensitive things like aeroplanes, really. Its originally use was for aeroplanes, but people use it on motorbikes as well. Something where you don't want like a thick wax, but you want some protection, and you're happy to reapply it every year. Now we're going to use this on the coilover shock absorbers because we've got the spring platforms that are adjustable, and you know what happens with coilovers: if you don't protect them, it all goes really rusty and seized up. So we're going to use that on there and on the spring while we're at it. I would try and avoid getting anything on the bushes if you can. There's some anti-roll bar bushes and some sort of other links that have got rubber on them. I'm not sure how these things affect rubber, but yeah, just be a bit careful of that. But there's not an awful lot of rubber really, so let's get spraying then. Okay, so first up, we're just going to use the microfiber to give stuff a wipe down. But it's pretty good actually following the pressure wash. It's just the springs really that had a bit of grime on them, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we can now move on to the Bilthamber Dynax UC. It says you need to leave it for up to 96 hours for the maximum hardness, but you can use a vehicle after 30 minutes if you want. When it's dry, it's as firm as candle wax, and once fully cured, it will resist dirt pickup. Right, we'll start on the inside of the car then. So there's this massive sort of subframe here. You can see it's already a bit stained. And then we've got this can't remember the name, it's not a coffin link, but it's one of those arms just there. That gets really corroded, and then actually on the top of the subframe just there. And then this is probably a track rod, tie rod. Let's give that a bit. And that's a wishbone where that one goes into. And also we've got the anti-roll bar, which is notorious for corrosion. That black film that it's got on it just cracks, and it looks awful, and in some cases you have to replace it. So that's good. So as you can see, a lot of it is aluminium, but aluminium still corrodes, it goes pretty ugly. If we can get to it first, brilliant. The anti-roll bar is steel, that's why it's got a black coating, but that's just a two-part coating. It's just steel with a primer and a top coat, so it's not very durable. We can get in there onto the subframe, just underneath the steering gaiter. Get onto the anti-roll bar link, why not? By the way, don't be afraid to use your fingers to spread it over, and also you can brush it on if you want to be more accurate. It does find its way into places it hasn't covered initially because it just creeps out before it dries, so it's quite penetrative in that way. Again, let's just rub the wax into this tie rod and then onto that suspension arm there. And that's very good. Now, obviously you might want to get underneath. Just be careful, if you're going to do this, you need to get a axle stand under the car as well, just to make sure your jack doesn't fail and do some damage. Okay, now onto the hub. Now this is the only bit around here that gets really hot, so you just be mindful that the brake disc will get hot. You just want to get some wax on there. Okay, and then on the top section here, also behind this aero guide is the brake pipe, and those bits on the end do corrode, so just get a bit on there. And there's a bracket holding that scoop on, so just get some on there. Okay, so more on the hub. And around the back of it. Now let's get onto the back of the car, where things are a little bit more complicated. Okay, so the big difference with the back is that we've got the exhaust pipes that go over the axle here. We've got the gearbox in there as well. So we just need to be mindful of what gets hot, because we don't really want to get much wax on that. It shouldn't cause a fire, but there might be a bit of smoke, and the tidier we are here, the better. Just behind this suspension arm, we've got the catalytic converter, so obviously that gets really, really hot, but we need to get wax down here, because as you can see, it's already corroding. There's a bit of corrosion on there as well. Obviously, front and back, keep the wax away from the brakes, because obviously they get hot and they need friction to work, not lubrication with waxes. But you can see there's a lot of aluminium that we can get to before corrosion gets to it. The drive shaft as well looks mint. I wouldn't really go too far in there with the gearbox, but I guess that doesn't get as hot as the engine, which is over here somewhere, which we can't get close to. So let's again start off then with Bilthamber. Just a little bit of spray on the cap, it's not a problem, it'll just clean itself off. Lovely. And then subframe down there. Bottom of the hub. That's good. And again, the back, but low down now. Again, back of the hub there. Massage it in with your fingers, stop it dropping on the floor. That's lovely. The whole section at the back of the hub that you want to try and get to if you can. Lovely. anti-roll bar. Beautiful. Drop link. Let's get a bit on there. That's good. Drive shaft. I'll just spray a bit on there. Rub that in. Now there's an anti-roll bar bush down there, so you want to try and avoid that, but you do want to get this bit of the subframe. And if you get some on it, let's just wipe it off. Lovely. There's a plate at the back of the suspension there as well that looks really prone to corrosion. Not sure what it does. But it shouldn't be too hot down there, so let's just try and aim some spray in there. Good. And let's just try and get in the gap there, just under the gearbox where there's a bracket. Lovely. And also a bit of the subframe goes into the centre of the car down there. Okay, now the top of the hub. The bracket here that will corrode really quickly where everything's mounted onto the hub. Let's just get our fingers on that and massage it in underneath it. Around the back of it. That's good. And then the back of the upper section of the hub as well, which is hard to get to because there's just no room. That's good. That brake hose looks like it needs a bit. Lovely. I'm just rubbing the wax into the back of this suspension link because I can't spray because it's too close to the cat. That feels good. It goes a long way in, by the way, so just try and get in as far as you can. And likewise with this bar that is a famous corroder because it is steel. I think it's got a little bit of grit in it. Just pop that out. Okay, now we need to wipe the spring down. Very nice. Okay, stick a bit of wax up there as well. Okay, and then now onto the ACF 50. So get it as much around the spring as you can, and then just massage it in. Like so, that's good. And then down here we've got the thread, so we need to be a bit more intricate with the spraying here just to make sure it goes around. And that is, by the way, the helper spring there, and that's the main spring. So that helps give the car a reasonably good ride as well as amazing handling. And then we've got the exposed thread. As you can see, it can go a lot lower. Let's just get that all the way around the back. That's good. Just like the Bilthamber wax, when you spray ACF 50 it does get into every little crevice, even if it doesn't do that immediately, because it takes quite a bit of time to go off. I'm not going to drive the car for at least a day and possibly 2. Okay, well that's the Cayman GT4 done for the winter. It's not perfect. It probably wouldn't even be perfect if you could do it on a lift, but I guess if you could take the under tray off and get really into the suspension, then you might be able to do a better job. But actually the under tray protects a lot of it anyway. Doing anything is better than doing nothing, particularly if you can get a car early enough before it starts corroding. But the good thing actually of these two products is that they slow down corrosion that already exists anyway. So yeah, it's never too late to do it. Right, let's get the wheels back on this car and then we can crack on with the Club Sport S.